Wait, it's January, isn't it?
And I've managed to get myself a haircut in that time. Hello, my name is Matt Jazz, and I've tasked myself to create a visual novel by myself. Today we are going to be starting the prototyping phase of this, so without further ado, let's jump straight in. So welcome to Devlog number 2. Now for the prototyping phase, I need to be able to have a game engine that I can work with. So after looking around online, I found several options, and all of them have their pros and cons, but I need to look at my situation whilst making this game. So being a first time developer, and one with more of an artistic background, I don't know any code. So going off of that, things like Unity and Unreal are off the table. I know there's assets like Nanny Novel, and visual scripting languages which allow me to create things that I want, but after looking around, there are actually several game engines that are specifically designed for these types of games, for visual novels. So other things like GDevelop, Godot, and maybe even GameMaker Studio are also out the window. So with those crossed off, it basically came down to two game engines, Tyranno Builder and Visual Novel Maker. Both are kind of roughly the same. It works on like a flowchart system, so if you say, show the background here, let the character join there, have the text join at this point, that's what you can do. It basically works on a node system. So because I've now managed to whittle it down to two game engines, I need to create some assets in order to test out each engine, starting with the background. Now I know I already had concepts designed and things already planned out for the background, but I wanted to see how the game engines handled both the images and video versions of the backgrounds. The reason being is because I can add things to the backgrounds in order to make it look more alive, example, cars driving past, weather effects and so on. So I loaded up Clip Studio Paint and actually drew sort of a rough background with like a plank that the cats would sit on, and I played around with a few things, eventually settling upon like a one perspective background on like a back alley street. This was actually drawn on my new drawing tablet that I acquired. Say hello to my new toy, this Hui on Canvas 13. It's an old tablet which I got from CEX, or 6 as they call it. And this tablet was kind of the test for this as well, and it actually held up pretty damn well, I'm not gonna lie. So after working on the background, it looks something like this. Something dead simple, something with just sort of a grayscale hues around everywhere. Now this isn't the final artwork for this. I am going to be polishing this and refining it further down the line. I'll probably get some photo reference so I can have, behind the counter. And obviously I'll be putting different effects on, things like depth of field and all that kind of stuff. But for testing purposes, this is perfect. So with the background in place, I actually wanted to bring in one of the characters that I had in mind and basically rescale it to the background. So I went to my sketchbook, I've drawn out several characters since the last devlog, and I refined the proportions a bit more and had a few more character designs in mind. Things like female characters, male characters, ones with jobs, shirts. Even saw this bodyguard character, which I think will probably be a thing further down the line, that kind of stuff. So let's just grab one of these and just use it for now. We'll just use this kind of male looking office worker, almost like the generic default character that will probably be that you're first introduced to most likely. And let's draw him up as well. So in Clip Studio Paint, what I basically did was bring that sketch in, resized it to the background of kind of what the scale I was looking for, and then cropped the 720p file to that character, if that makes sense. And then I know that's the size of the character I'm going to be working with, or the size of the canvas, I should say. From there, it was just like a normal case of just outlining everything. I had the head and the body separate, just in case. And then after that, I colored it in and did the shading for it. I'm essentially creating a character rig in Clip Studio, so I can move things around and change things on the fly if I need to. Things like, example, the eyes looking around left to right and blinks and that kind of stuff. So with the initial character design designed, I actually went in and created some blink shapes for it. So the eyelids coming down, the eventual close of the eyes. I just want to test if I can animate some of these characters in the engine as well, as like a loop and animation, almost like idle poses, which again would help make the game look more alive. And the final thing, which I didn't record, was just a few speech bubbles. I'm not going to be working with what normal visual novels do when like a big text box comes at the bottom, because I feel like that will just cover the character designs a bit more. So using my inspiration, which was coffee talk, I'm going to be using speech bubbles for this. And I've created 3 sizes, large, medium and small, just for testing purposes. And that's kind of the assets I've got for now. Obviously, further down the line, I'm going to be polishing the prototype as much as possible, things like custom menus and stuff like that. So what I'm going to be doing here is trying to work with the engine. We'll start with Tyranno Builder. Tyranno Builder is a node-based system game engine on Steam. It's actually relatively cheap, roughly about 15 quid, I think, off the top of my head. So going in here, it's very easy to use, very user-friendly. And yeah, I found it very easy to basically make what I want. The only thing that I seemed to struggle with was getting the speech bubbles to work. The speech bubbles that obviously I need to bring in as like an image file that will just pop up on screen. But changing the actual text and where that goes each time was kind of difficult for me. I don't know if I couldn't find it. I don't know if it was something that was wrong. But some of the games that I kind of played around with felt almost like I was playing with Microsoft Paint at sometimes. Sometimes it was very difficult for me to do what I wanted to do, and some of the customization seemed very limited. I know this is sort of designed for like traditional visual novels where you get like characters coming on screen sort of talking that way. So I think Tyranno Builder is kind of out of the window at the moment. I mean, it's not gone, but I certainly think we should just move on to Visual Novel Maker and see how that gets on. So when I got into Visual Novel Maker, this is made by the same people that do RPG Maker, but it's the visual novel equivalent. This kind of retails around £40 to £50, but I happen to get it on sale. That's the reason why I've got it here. The reviews are quite mixed. Some people say it's a very solid engine to use, but then it has a few kinks to iron out and stuff like that. I think some of the more bug issues that I encountered was things like glitching out and lagging, and then some of the times the game wouldn't load, but I think that was down to myself, accidentally deleting things, trying to get rid of like the default characters and stuff that were there. But eventually I managed to figure out a way and a system that would get me to do what I needed to do. So for this basic prototype, I just wanted to have literally background show up, character come on stage, and then have the speech bubble pop up and have it just say hello. That was it. That was the initial prototyping phase. From then, it was basically a case of narrowing it down, polishing it more, having things that, you know, like custom menus or the choice systems, that kind of stuff. That's what the next video is going to be about. And after tinkering around with it for a little bit, this is kind of the end result. Obviously, I've got the default menu for now, but the game sets up, it starts, and then you get the background appearing, the character, the speech bubble, and it says hello. I also managed to get a looping animation from this, from the blink images that I had from before as well. But the way Visual Novel is set up, you have to do it through sprites, but I think it'll loop strangely. So I think what I'm going to end up having to do is do like video or like actual animation pieces for the different views and blinks and that kind of stuff. But that's for me to experiment with next time. And that's kind of it. That's kind of where I've got up to so far with the prototype. Now, the next video is going to be refining this a bit more, like I said earlier. So adding things like the custom menus and see what the possibilities with that is. And also checking out some of the choice options and systems. Like I said, this is a game about cats eating ramen. So I would like to add possibly one of the options of how that would work, sort of the gameplay mechanics and stuff. And then testing out the possibilities of the actual characters themselves. So as I mentioned in the previous video, there's ghost elements involved in this as well. So I want to see if the characters can actually be transparent as well, which will also add a bit more effects to them. So without further ado, thanks very much for watching, and I'll probably see you in the next video. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.